Welcome to The Wrecking Trade, this and every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m., the radio show that provides a platform for a deeper understanding of issues affecting men in the Cayman Islands. Join us as we explore the low enrollment of men and boys in college classrooms, the absence of men in the church, and the absence of fathers in the home. Join the conversation as we help men find their place in the modern world. Through engaging interviews with experts and members of the community, we provide a clear picture of what healthy masculinity looks like as an example for boys and girls. Our mission is to provide a voice for men, to help them navigate the challenges that they face and provide hope for a brighter future. So tune in this and every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. and join the conversation on The Wrecking Trade. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of men and boys in the Cayman Islands. Brought to you by Oscore Fitness, strong inside, powerful outside, and the Bellagio Salon and Spa, where beauty is reimagined.
I came in like a wrecking ball. I'm not afraid.
Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling.
Now some of you might.
And welcome to The Wrecking Trade. I'm your host, Robert Lynch. Today is gonna be fire. We have some wonderful guests in studio. Some of them you know, a new one you're gonna hear as we get to know each other. The Wrecking Trade is sponsored by Oscore Fitness and the Bellagio Salon and Spa. Now, let's get right into it. Let's get it. Would you mind going ahead and introducing yourselves? And we're gonna go with your name, your relationship status, what do you do for business, and of course, let's just start with those three for now.
My name's Chelsea Flynn. I'm 33 years old. I'm single, and I'm the recruitment manager and co-founder of the agency.
Awesome. Thank you.
My name is Michael Sanford. I too am 33 years old. I'm married, and I am a business owner as well.
Hello, Shuvra there. I am 40 years old. I'm single. And I am a podcast host, and I own a business helping people to prioritize and look after their own mental health.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Again, thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for being here. We're going to have a great conversation. Let's see if we can unpack some of what is going on in our society today. And one of the things that we just like to start with is, same as always, what does masculinity mean to you? Who'd like to kick off?
I think I said this last time I was here, but it still applies. I very much believe masculinity in terms of masculine energy would be to protect, to provide, and to preside.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm just going to jump to Shuvra before we come to you, Michael.
Okay, whatever I said last time. So masculinity, I think for me, I see the whole masculine feminine thing as being more of an equal position now in the modern society that most of us live in most parts of the world. I do agree with Chelsea on the whole protection thing, and I spoke about this last time, that if there's an intruder in the house, and you led with this, Rob, I'm not going to be the one to jump up and be like, babe, I'll protect you. It's going to be the other way around. So I think each aspect has its place, but for me, on a more overall playing field, I think equality is the way I view it.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Shuvra.
I guess from a masculinity standpoint, like what Chelsea touched on, to provide, the protector. I guess at the end of the day, nowadays when it comes on to the masculine and the feminine, like you were just basically describing, that's a role in a way, a responsibility in a way. And I do think, like, yes, it is the role and the responsibility of the masculine person, being the man, to be able to provide, to protect, to give that sort of energy, as what Chelsea classed it. But I also look at masculinity is just something that's innate biologically as a man, that I think all men are masculine in their own way. I think all females are feminine naturally in their own way. But I do think that we have traits. So again, you can have a female that has more masculine traits in terms of she can be more authoritative, she can be more have leadership roles, whereas again a man can just be a little bit more subdued, like slightly more calmer, in having like feminine sort of traits. So that's how I kind of view it.
Yeah, and there's an energy thing there as well. So there's the divine feminine energy, then there's the divine masculine energy, and quite often we can get out of balance. And I certainly felt when I was working in the corporate world that my masculine side, the decision making, the being sort of authoritative, as you just said, Michael, planning, preparation, presenting, being aggressive. I can feel myself getting all, pumped up just talking about it, like thinking back to that. So I think for me, that when I was doing that role, I felt like I was out of balance and I didn't have enough of my feminine energy at play. And now I feel I have more of a balance. I'm still able to prepare, plan, put, business plans together, put, talks, whatever it is, workshops, things together. I'm able to do all of that, present it, have an effect. But in order to get there, I need to be creative, and that's where my feminine energy comes in.
Yeah.
And I feel much more balanced now that I'm able to tap into both.
But I guess, what made you, want to come, more or less, challenge in your masculine with others?
Sorry, say that again?
What made you want to tap in and have to, the way I look at it as a man is that I don't, for me as a man, I don't want to have to compete with your femininity. So I'm trying to say is, what made you feel like you had to tap in and compete
I've got a
with
very
someone's
short
masculinity?
answer
And
to
that's a
that.
really great question, right? And I love that you brought up the idea of you being in that space and feeling that masculine energy present itself. And I guess the question really ties in right there in the sense that, hey, you recognized it and something made you want to bring the balance back. But before we jump into that, before we bring the fire, let's see if we can touch in on some things that we appreciated a little bit earlier. You've both been on the show before. Is there anything that resonated with you from last time that you stuck out with you from last time that, or anything that was eye-opening for you from last time that you'd like to share with us today?
Some of the statistics that you shared about, kind of the high number of divorces being initiated by women,
Yes.
and 90% in Cayman, am I correct?
Yes.
That was quite an eye-opener. I didn't expect it to be that high, although I've heard of the Cayman curse. I did not believe it was 90% is women. The second thing that quite surprised me was when you talked about the studies showing, yes, nuclear families, less likely for the children or, the young adults growing up in those households to be at risk. Kind of that's number one. And then second to that would certainly be, as you had said, based on the studies that you talked about, father-led households, and women were actually third down the totem pole for that.
Yes.
As single mothers. As a single mother, that was a little bit, I had to tone down my masculine energy in that moment because I feel quite fiercely protective of other single women and single mothers, I should say, and also just the number shocked me, to be honest, or the kind of the order of sort of priority in terms of father-led households being kind of more advantageous for children than single mother-led households.
I don't know
That's
if it's so
quite-
much father-led, though. I think it's the father's presence more than father-led.
No, well, what he was saying
Yes.
was outside of a nuclear family, if the studies show that father-led, as in single father
Yes.
over single mother,
So certainly,
Is better for the child.
I don't know if Robert maybe I'm
So to
looking at it
clarify
from
for-
fatherless
so to
versus
clar-
father-led.
So to clarify for you, the idea is the best and most protective environment for children to be raised is the two-parent households.
Yeah.
Right? The statistics also show that father-led, so single-parent households led by fathers had an advantage over single mother-led households on three key metrics. On education, they had more education success. On financial, so they had more financial success, more or less likely to be in poverty. And they had emotional success. They were more likely to have long-term peer bonding over time as opposed to in single mother households.
Do they know why? Because also there are probably, and I'm making a huge assumption here, but there probably are more single mother households
Yeah.
than single father households.
Absolutely.
So are we comparing apples and pears, or is it like for like? I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the study.
Well,
and
I think it's 80% is of single homes are mothers led,
68, yes.
and then so 68. So then that leaves 32 single father homes, and I think I was telling Chelsea about it earlier this morning. A lot of it has to do with resources and discipline.
Yes.
Because the average man in the United States, as an example, makes $10,000 more a year than the average
average
female. So if you have $10,000 more in income, you have more ability to provide the necessary resources to take care of that child, to educate that child, and at the same time, innately as a father, we kind of bring that discipline that side of it. So again, you're gonna create less promiscuous women in society, because that's, you know, we're gonna be like, mom, you know, our daughters, we want to kind of like keep them, you know, we expect like the man that's gonna come and take them one day, he has to come correct, you know what I mean? So we're gonna protect them in that sort of sense, and at the same time, by us also being that disciplinarian when it comes to young males, young boys and all that, it's going to keep them out of, you know, keep them out of the jail. It's going to keep them, I mean, I admit that I had a father in my life, still do, been married, he's married 30 years, whatever it is, and all that, and I very well struggled with both those, and I can't imagine if I didn't get my butt whooped quite often where I would be, you know what I mean?
Well,
so I needed that kind of discipline to.
I agree very much on
Yes.
kind of, you know, having a man who is in his masculine energy being able to provide discipline and the resources, right? Because let's, you know, the pay gap, all of that makes sense. However, I would love to really study these statistics, just because as a single mother, as the provider, as the protector, I'm quite heavily in my masculine energy
Yeah.
for the majority of my life, the majority of my time. So, you know, therefore I would imagine that single mothers are also having to lean into their masculine energy to play the fatherly role to their children as well. So I still wonder why, because a man can have masculine energy and a woman can have masculine energy. So what makes your household, if you were a single father, more advantageous for raising the child than my
And that's
household?
a really great
if
question.
we raise the
And the
same
idea
money,
here is,
if we have the same money, sort
and
of thing.
what I'm hearing at the base of that question, and it's a very important question for all of us, is can a woman take on masculine energy and replace a man, right? And what the statistics are saying is that no, we're taking on a role, but you can't become that thing. Just like I can never, ever replace a child's mother. No man can replace a child's mother. No matter how much feminine energy you take on, you are playing a role. It is not in your natural state.
It's not
And there-
about replacement, though, is it? It's
Replacement
about
as in-
doing the job with the situation that you're in.
Yeah, with the tools that you've been given. So we spoke about this morning. Yes, a nuclear family statistics show is better for a child. Second down, according to these statistics, is father-led single household, and third down would be my household, right?
Yes.
Single mother of 3 children. So with the tools of the situation that I am in, one can only, you know, do what is best for my own children in the situation that I am in. So I guess it's not that I'm trying to replace my children's father, it's that I am in my, you know, I'm playing the more masculine role when I need to when it comes to discipline, providing, protecting, and I'm also nurturing and, you know, giving affection and encouraging creativity and giving that kind of softness and, you know, the kind of things we associate with femininity as well. So kind of having to hop between 2 ends of the spectrum. But it's not that I'm trying to replace.
Yes, and I appreciate you saying that. One of the things I want to be able to share is that this is by no way an attack on single mothers. We're not saying, hey, single mothers are doing a horrible job. The recognition is, first, to begin with, what is happening in 2-parent households that is giving them that advantageous situation? What is happening in that situation? What do you think is happening in the mother-father in the home with the child that gives them that advantage?
The extra pair of hands.
Yeah. Believe me, when you've got 2 children. Yeah.
Goes without saying that
Yeah.
I think we spoke about on the show that I was on, that it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
If you've got at least 2 pairs of hands, then that's a better village than if,
Yeah.
as you say, you're doing it by yourself with 3 kids. I mean, that's
Yeah.
extraordinary.
And to then
High
be
five
able,
you.
thank you, to be able to then switch back into my nurturing after a long day of being at work all day, and then having to, you know, have my little girl do your homework, in my masculine being the bad cop type, you know, kind of pushing her to do something, and then also tuck them in, read them a story, make them feel loved. It's very difficult to do that. If you've got 2 parents, you can both adopt 2 different roles and switch between them.
And so what we're recognizing here is it's not just the hands. Let's be clear on that.
It's a big
not just
part
the
of
hands.
it, though, because of the physical energy it takes for me to chase
Certainly,
3
you can
kids
always
around
get a
the
nanny. You
house,
make enough
right?
money, you can add a nanny, you can get extra hands in there, but that does not lead to the success.
Yeah, I
the
mean-
father as a person, the mother as a person, these persons are more than just hands. And this is
Agreed.
what I want us to be able to recognize, to be able to see that, hey, the dad in the household is not just an extra pair of hands.
No.
He does, and you rightly said it, he does give you an opportunity to be fully feminine so that he can be fully masculine. And all of your business owners, you recognize that, hey, if you have a business partner that is able to focus on a particular thing, and you're able to focus on a particular thing, you can both accomplish more than if you are trying to juggle both roles.
I think there's a huge presumption here that the
Yes.
men are the disciplinarians and the women's are the ones that sit there and, you know,
True.
stroke the pets or, you know, stir the pot, whatever it is we're supposed to be doing. Because I've certainly been in relationships. So I have 2 cats. You know, this is the best comparator I can give you, I'm afraid. I'm not trying to insult you,
No,
because your
no,
job is
you're not.
way harder.
You're not.
I mean, I have self-cleaning animals that I can leave by themselves for a day. So, but, you know, I'm also a disciplinarian. I don't let my animals do certain things. I don't let people come into my house and do certain things. And I will raise my voice and I will be the disciplinarian. Then I've been dating guys who are kind of just like, oh, they're just cats. You can't talk to them like that. And I'm like, oh, yes, I can.
Because they're my cats.
Well, it's just that assumption that the men are the disciplinarians. I appreciate that some people are. It seems that you are. You were raised in that way, and that's your experience. But not all men in that couple situation are the disciplinarians.
No, we're probably talking, like, we're trying to generalize it a bit
Yes.
here. Yes, we are talking, I guess you're coming from more of the exception point of the view. But just like
Am I?
I think so. And then, again, that's your opinion. But like I was telling Chelsea this morning, something as simple as just, you can't replace something like the bass in a man's voice. You know, like, I have a 1-year-old son, and I will see him literally run over his mother, and I will just go, you know, like, I'll just literally just call him by his name, and he just reacts and responds differently, you know. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, we have to respect, like, what women bring to the table. Again, like what you were saying, Chelsea, you know, I think a female you can only have a child. Only you can. That's what makes you a female. That's what makes you a woman. And at the same time, I think men, we just come with certain things to the table that, so I don't really think so much like that you can just be us or I can
But what
just be
about-
you, because I don't want to be a mom. Like, I literally don't want to be a mom. I want to be a dad. Even if it's a single dad, I just want to be a dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, from that point of view, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, fathers, even when it comes to holidays, right? Father's Day is the 18th most celebrated day on in the calendar. I think, like,
Which means 17 things.
I can't even think of I can only think like of 5, and Father's Day is the 18th most celebrated day. You know, like, you know, I'll even have, you know, people in my family be like, you know, because my grandmother raised 5 children on her own, and I think that's amazing.
That's
you know,
incredible.
worked 3 jobs. You know, again, very strong. We're not taking away from the fact that you all are exemplary, excellent mothers, right? But where I kind of like look at it, and I think when I hear people's like, you know, I think women can jump on a certain train sometime and like,
My mother who fathered me.
they'll
for
say
that expression.
happy Father's Day to my mother, like to mommy, and I get it. She came with that energy, like that role that she had to step up to the plate. But me as a father, I'm just there looking at it, just thinking like, so, you know, again, like what if I am a single father that is primary custody, taking care of this child? Like, I have no care in the world to be celebrated as a mother, to be
They'll
like,
probably celebrate you both, Mother's Day and Father's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Mike. You know, like, you're doing a, like, I that's for the mother. That's for that's for my child's mother. Just like so I think it's like sort of like those things. I never would want to be a mother. Just like you guys
I just
shouldn't
think
want to be a
that-
father.
I get what you're saying, and I kind of get the impression that men may feel a little bit unevenly celebrated when it comes to father. And again, as you said, it's equal. It should be very equal. But I will say there does have to be a whole lot of emphasis on the fact that a woman carries a child for 9 months. She goes through the kind of the physical intensity that it takes to carry another human being and then birth a human being. So yes,
And I don't think no one is.
no, but I think they are.
You know?
I think that's why
No.
some fathers get upset. But it's like, you need to give women that extra. Yeah, we do get that extra.
No,
those
you
extra
do.
round
You
breaks
definitely
because
do.
you're
Let's
birthing
check in on that,
a
Mike.
human
Mike.
being.
You
And then
definitely
we
do.
still, a lot of these women are still you know, they're cooking dinner, they may still be working, and, you know, so there has to be, it's not exactly like for like, because yes, you are a father, but when a child needs to be breastfed, it's the baby's on mummy, and it's so physically, intensively, you know, draining for a woman, as well as doing all the other things that come with being a mother.
And I'm really glad you said that, because here we're recognizing a thing that women do that men can never do.
We can never do it.
But
We
can
can't
we just make the
breastfeed.
point that some women can't have children, so that
Yes.
doesn't make them any less of a
No.
woman, right?
Yes.
Or a
100%.
mother, in a sense. I would still argue that a woman can be a mother to a child. You know, there's women that adopt children all
Yes.
over the world, and they mother those children.
Absolutely.
And do the things that any other biological mother would do. So I think we just got to be
Key
careful
word
with
you
that
said here too throughout this whole thing was mother.
Yes.
She's a mother.
She is a mother.
She's a
adopted
mother,
a child.
but at no
Yes.
point can she like you just can't adopt certain things that like again like what a man brings to what he that energy, like again I can never be you, and you can really never really be
when
me.
I'm firm with my children, I can adopt a deep voice. Let me be clear, like, they know Mummy's stern voice.
Let's get you deep voice.
I was in my masculine last time, and you knew.
Yeah.
Bed, that's my deep voice.
That's fine.
Bed.
But I just want to like go back real quickly to the statistics again. Like I kind of just like brought them here too. So this is from the National Centers for Fathering, and some of these statistics are coming from the U.S. Department of Health and Census. Again, to Center for Disease Control. So these are, you know, I think these are credible sources. And this is where, again, where Robert was saying the data is coming from in terms of the men being the second in that tier, right? Because again, 63% of all youth suicides are from fatherless homes.
Yes.
Not father-led, fatherless, right? 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from homeless homes.
Fatherless homes.
From fatherless homes, sorry. 85% of children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists, 80% of all rapists and that display anger problems come from fatherless homes. And to me, like, that's scary.
That should
That's
be
scary. That
very
like again,
scary
like you,
statistics.
like I'm not saying that again. Like what I'm saying is, so what we're saying is, every one of those men that have committed some heinous sexual assault act on a female, where did they come from? Like again, you put 10 of them in a room. We're gonna actually
8 of
say
them.
8 of them
Wow.
were.
Wow.
They came because they came with all kind of different psychological traumas, being monogamous to their mothers, and that kind of mom is whatever it could be. It could even be that she made him whatever. But that's just when. So again, when the data comes
Yeah.
out there, and this is again like that's where the data is coming from.
No, I get it, and again, I'm very into quality of data as well, right? I did my dissertation on risk factors. I am essentially, we talked about it, you said you would class me as an anomaly. I came from a low-income family in a poor, economically deprived area, no father, so I experienced a lot of the risk factors, and yet here I am. That being said, I am now a single mother, which my mother was a single mother. But in terms of the data that you just talked about there, I would love to kind of learn about the other risk factors that those children would have experienced that may have impacted those things, like sexual abuse and you know, the other things you mentioned, because I'm sure other things like low economic sort of upbringing, or an economically deprived, being brought up in an economically
I'm sure
deprived
it's a
area,
lot of factors.
you know, all of these things, like where they live, location, all of these things can impact things like becoming a sexual predator,
But at the
right?
same
Not
time,
just
Mike,
not having
but
a
at the
daddy in
same-
the house.
Mike, hold on,
Michael,
but
Michael.
at the-
So certainly they can, and the idea here is correlation is not causation, but it must be recognized that, hey, if there's a high correlation in something, a particular thing,
Yeah.
we must look and see what is happening there to cause this high correlation. And while you may have anomalies and go, hey, what was it that happened that was special for Chelsea that allowed her to navigate from this situation? But here's the thing, that the majority of persons are finding themselves in this situation. What did you do differently to them? So separate and apart from the other risk factors, here's the thing. 8 out of 10 persons who are find themselves as rapists came from single mother households. All right? So we're not saying the mothers caused it. We're saying there's a high correlation there.
There's factors behind whatever is going on within that home that's being led in that, whatever that is, that's what is the result.
And so an
that's-
8 out of 10 number is going to run across a multitude of different things. It's going to run across poor economic status to high economic status. It's going to run across different risk factors, separate and apart from wealth. It's going to run across different emotional stance, many different things. But that is a pretty high number, you'd say.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, I
if
mean,
those numbers were success numbers, you go 80%. Yes, that's almost an A, right? Right?
Yeah, that's like a
almost an
B.
A. But in this case,
Probably closer to a B, but sure.
passing grade.
passing grade. It's well above a C, right?
3.0.
And so as we look at these things, and this is what we're looking at, as we have these conversations, as we look at these things, there's a whole bunch of things that can impact it. It is to look the statistics in the face and go, hey, this is what's happening. This is what the landscape looks like. What is it that we as a society are doing and can do differently? We'll explore this and more when we come back from the break. Welcome to The Wrecking Trade, this and every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m., the radio show that provides a platform for a deeper understanding of issues affecting men in the Cayman Islands. Join us as we explore the low enrollment of men and boys in college classrooms, the absence of men in the church, and the absence of fathers in the home. Join the conversation as we help men find their place in the modern world. Through engaging interviews with experts and members of the community, we provide a clear picture of what healthy masculinity looks like as an example for boys and girls. Our mission is to provide a voice for men, to help them navigate the challenges that they face and provide hope for a brighter future. So tune in this and every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. and join the conversation on The Wrecking Trade. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of men and boys in the Cayman Islands. Brought to you by Oscore Fitness, strong inside, powerful outside, and the Bellagio Salon and Spa, where beauty is reimagined.
I came in like a wrecking ball.
Every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling.
As we explore the differences between single mother-led households and single father-led households and the curative or protective impact of the nuclear family. This and much more. I mean, we've looked at many statistics, we've looked at the data, and I just want to say again at this point that we're not bashing single mothers. Many women have found themselves in situations where they cannot help but work on their own, right? This is what we're saying.
Yeah.
But in the middle of that, we're saying, hey, if you do find yourself in a situation where you can do differently, looking at the statistics, how would that impact the decisions that we make? And I want to use that to come back to a question that you asked earlier, Michael. And that question was, Shubhra, you saw yourself in a more masculine role as you were taking on that, as you were in the corporate field, and
Yeah.
you're doing more things, and and you decided to change. Mike, you want to ask her the question again?
I can't remember the question right now,
Before, I
but
remember the
was-
question, but before we go to that, you just said there, Robert, that women have found themselves in a situation where they're doing the child raising by themselves.
Yes.
They may have chosen that situation. So again, it's a huge presumption.
chose.
Right. There you go. So it's a huge presumption to say, oh, poor little woman, she didn't have a choice. If she'd had a choice, she would have kept the man around or found a different one or whatever it is. That's not
Actually,
necessarily
Shubhra, I
always
was
the
actually
case.
being nice when I said found themselves, because we've already talked about the statistics that say 90% of divorces are filed for by women. So that's not a fine, that's a choice.
But why
And
did
so-
they do that?
But here's, and that's a really
again-
great question, because here's the thing. Why do they do that if you are in a situation where you recognize that doing that is going to put yourself your child at an 80% chance of becoming
But
a
here's the thing.
rapist?
I know so many people
So-
that would have wished their parents would have got divorced because the household was so toxic. So we need to be careful with this messaging around. Had she have stayed with that man, her child would have had
So
a better
we're not
chance
even
of
there.
success.
We're not even there yet.
I don't
Where
like
we
that
are-
narrative
Where we are
because-
is looking at what are the numbers.
The numbers can show one thing, but we need to look at the qualitative data too,
Certainly.
and the personal situations. If that man is beating that woman or that woman is beating that man, that's not healthy for the children either.
Absolutely.
All the
You're
parents are
certainly
incapable
right.
of conflict resolution, and that's where a lot of the toxic situations come from. And I can relate to what you said, where people have said that I have known that they wish that their parents had got divorced, and the toxicity would, they think, have gone away with that, or at least been better managed.
Because
And certainly,
presenteeism.
and one of the things that usually happens in this conversation is many times we introduce the extremes as the norm.
Yeah, the
Fair
outliers.
point. All right,
These-
even if
these
there-
situations
if there's not physical
and
violence.
let me say this: if there's physical violence, get out, protect
Yeah, of
yourself,
course.
protect yourself, absolutely protect
Yeah.
yourself, right? What we are looking at though is what is the percentage of these divorce situations find themselves in abusive situations,
Okay,
right?
let's-
And so once we look at that, we're looking at take those to one side
Yeah.
and then look at the others.
Yeah.
Look at the other situations where you're going, hey, how many times are persons getting divorced for irreconcilable differences and many other things where it is really a personal position or a personal preference, right? And so we're looking at those situations and going, could something be done differently? Would it make sense to do something differently, even if you are, let's say, unhappy? Because if you think about it, when you're weighing your happiness, and this is one of the things that happens as parents. As parents, you're no longer your own. You've just introduced people into the world who are now going to be the next generation of society. They're going to be the leaders, or the prisoners. And what we're saying is, do I have control or responsibility in that situation?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I
Yes.
think the happiness factor is irrelevant. Whether someone's happy or not, I mean, that's a bit self-indulgent, isn't it? How we stop these situations from arising, one of the ways is to be able to teach our children to have conflict resolution skills, to be emotionally balanced human beings, which a lot of people have missed out on because they have been raised in households where they've seen their parents, as I said before, unable to resolve conflict, being emotionally immature, for example, having an argument and stonewalling, and that's how they then assume or
Or
they
even better,
bring on.
pick better partners, I would argue. So yes, it's good to have conflict resolution, have
Yes.
those tools, but even before you get there, so that you don't end up in a situation where you are married, you pick better partners. We're teaching our young women about boundaries and men, but we're enabling our next generation to have the skills to be able to pick very carefully before they're in those situations. And I agree, I did give a couple of extreme examples there, so I appreciate, you highlighting that. But honestly, I think it depends on where you stand on marriage and divorce. I'm a religious woman, I don't take divorce lightly. It's probably one of the worst, it's a sin essentially to divorce and then, be in another relationship with somebody else. So I want to make it clear though that we are human beings, and human beings can make mistakes, and human beings can evolve. And if two human beings are not evolving together and their values and their morals are no longer aligned, then I actually don't think there needs to be an extreme. Like, a woman can decide, actually, I am going to put my happiness first in order for me to be a better mother for my children. I don't think we can just sit here and say, well, she should suck it up because she brought those children into the world. Well, no, if mummy is miserable and she and she's unable to be the best version of herself for herself, then mummy is not going to be able to be the best version of herself for her children.
It's
so even
interesting.
if there's not an extreme example, we shouldn't be saying,
Yeah.
well, you got
But
married,
it's
so figure
really
it out.
interesting that you said that, and I want to tie it back to something you said earlier, Shuvra, to the idea that, hey, mommy can certainly want to be the best version of herself. Absolutely. I mean, we're looking forward to everyone being the best version of themselves. But here's what it's in the middle of. If two people get married and they have no children, get divorced, separate, do whatever you need to do. Hey, be the best version of yourself. What we are saying in this situation is, hey, if those two people have children, that best version of yourself changes. Because what is the value of me being the best version of myself if I now put my children at an 80% chance of being a rapist, a 68% chance of being in prison, or
Suicide.
suicide, right? To end their own life, or many of the other negative potential statistics, or negative
Extremes, yeah.
the negative extremes that I'm
Extremes,
now putting that child in. I'm making that decision. And I know sometimes, and the reason why we're having this conversation, the reason why this platform is necessary, is that many times when we're making these decisions, we don't know these statistics. We don't know that we're doing these things. So I'm not saying anyone is out there putting their children in harm's way intentionally.
Even if
And-
I
and
knew
can I-
these statistics before I got divorced, would I have gotten divorced? Yes.
Can I-
Believe me, as a woman who got divorced, we do not take it lightly. Anybody who has to go through a divorce is probably one of the most awful things to have to go through in your life. And to sit there, and I've never met a parent who's got divorced who didn't ask themselves the question, should I stay in this marriage for my children? every good parent asks themselves that question, and they
100%.
don't take it lightly.
Yeah.
So although they might not know that it's 68% likely to happen, the first thing a parent thinks about is, how is this going to impact my children? But also for me, it was, what impact is this going to have on my children if I do not do this?
So
I
here's the
also think
question.
are we not focusing on this Graper statistic in isolation? So 80%, whatever those figures are. But it might also be the case that 80% of successful scholars with first-class degrees also come from single-parent families that could be single mother-led families. We don't have the other statistics of where the good things are. We're
I
just
mean, we do.
focusing on the
We
positive
do,
extremes.
we do actually. We do. We
On-
have
on-
the statistics on where these come from, and these generally come from either co-parent house. I mean,
Yeah, that's what we
mother,
have
father-led
those statistics,
households.
but we don't have how many astronauts, or maybe that's a bad example because that's kind of a bit of a niche job. How many I don't know, partners in law firms, because there's millions of those running around.
Yes.
How many of them come from single
Because you're
parent?
underestimating
You're also,
the
I think you're trying to
resilience.
define success being
Yes.
like on a different scale too. Like again, you can go out there and be some kind of, you be an analyst or you're IT tech making $50K a year, and you're being productive in society. It doesn't mean that isn't that still successful?
I was just using the law firm partners as an example.
but yeah,
I know.
she's
That's
agreeing with you
but
on
that's
that.
the top. That's like the top, probably what 1%, 2% of people or even less than that in the world. But it's still yes, that's a very successful person.
Well, I
and
think because Shuvra was trying to explain that we're talking about the worst of society. We're talking about
We're talking about
rapists, the
extremes.
scum of society. Then we must also
Agreed,
look at
agreed.
the very successful as well. And as you said, it doesn't have to be very successful defined by money or running businesses and all of that. It can just be somebody who actually managed to get through life with a good, they manage their mental health. They're a good contributing member of society, and that can equal success. Somebody that is not damaging other human beings, I would define as success.
But I guess what I'm saying is that we do have those
100%.
statistics.
100%. That's what I'm trying to say.
Somebody who
The
breaks
guy-
the chain,
Hold on,
right?
Yeah,
one
yeah,
second.
100%.
We're
The
trying
guy
to
at the law.
we're trying to cross-reference something here, and that specific cross-reference is to look at what are the success stories coming out of single mother-led households, as opposed to going, hey, this is what's happening coming out of single mother-led households, and this is what happens coming out of two-parent-led households and fatherless households, father-led households. What we are saying is that the success stories generally, by and large, come from this section, which means they're not coming from this section.
Why? Why does it mean they're not coming from? It doesn't have to be one or the other. There can
Yes,
be
it does,
some-
actually.
But
That's
it
how
is,
statistics
okay, so
work.
let me.
It does. It literally says, hey, if you put 10 people together, this is where the ones who are generally successful, and of course, just like you will have anomalies or outliers, but the majority of these persons who are looking successful, they will have this background.
So Robert, I just want to just jump in real
Thank you.
quick. So this is the father factor in
Yes.
education, right? Statistics. And again, the same statistics from like the U.S. Department of Census Bureau, the Justice of Behavior, same statistics. Children with fathers who are involved are 40% less likely to repeat a grade in school. Children with fathers who are involved are 70% less likely to drop out of school. Children with fathers who are involved are more likely to get A's in school. So we're talking about the top of the top. Again, children with fathers who are involved are more likely to enjoy school and also engage in extracurricular activities. So I think where he was coming from is that, again, like that's where the father comes into play. We're very focused and oriented. Not to say that you guys aren't, but I mean, I grew up in a way like on Saturdays, as an example, I used to think like, oh, I smell bacon and egg. Yeah, I'm looking forward to breakfast. And as I'm walking across the dining room table, my dad has sheets of paper and he has timetables and division and different things like that. My mom never fulfilled that kind of like say, well, you got to do, like that was sort of like his arena then where he pushed that thing. I mean, not to say, okay, me and my brother turned out okay, I think we did. Like we got our bachelor's degree. He's a vice president at Maples. I have my own business. It depends. You know what I mean? Every situation, like what you're saying, but then the data is showing that, again, when dads are involved, education, just like what we talked about, you are actually going to be a bit more successful.
And this is one of the things that's coming in with this data, even right here in this conversation. As men, I think it is easier for us to possibly go, hey, I may feel a particular way about a particular thing, right? I may not like that feeling, but this is what the data says.
Okay.
And many times, even going back to the beginning of time, men have found themselves in situations. Many times we say, hey, men are not emotional, men are more logical, women are more emotional. But one of the things that has happened is actually both of us are emotional. But men have had to learn how to manage, or let me say that a different way. Men have had a lot more experience managing those emotions and putting those emotions in the secondary position. So I'm sure that men don't enjoy waking up in the morning and going to work in, what do they call those? In mines, right? Men don't enjoy going to work in Alaskan sea fishing, some of the most dangerous jobs in the world.
Garbage trucks, sewers, you know, the guys that has to go and climb the towers that
women.
paint the poles.
There are
What is the
loads
point
of
here?
female builders
What
here.
is the
I know.
point here? I'm waiting for the
Well,
point.
I mean,
you keep saying
well,
men don't privilege. Okay, so what's your point here? Because it's not only men that do this. Like, what are you leading?
Well, I
up
mean,
to?
again, like
can
as
we
an
agree on
example,
something? Can we
as an
agree on
example,
something?
water treatment
Little bit
One
facilities.
second, Mike. One second, Mike. Before we throw these other numbers in there, can we agree on something, right? Can we agree on the fact that the jobs that we just listed, the majority of these jobs are held by men?
Right. So
Right?
why didn't you lead with that and say, look, the majority of the jobs that I'm going to list are led by men, and then say, okay, men don't enjoy it. But what is your point? Okay, men
Because,
don't enjoy it. Where's
you
what's
need-
the
you need
relevance
clearly-
of this
you need
point?
these things in
Hear me
There's
society.
women.
though.
There's
So
jobs that women do that we don't enjoy either, but we do them.
But-
Breastfeeding is one. Some women do not enjoy breastfeeding. It's very painful, but we do it. So what is the point we're trying to make here? Because women, you know, whilst men are out there doing this in the nuclear families that you're talking about, the women will also be playing their roles. And ultimately, as you said, to your point, the data shows the children are coming out.
Would you like me to
being
make the point now?
successful. Yes, please.
Okay, so the idea that we're sharing here in the middle of this is, since the beginning of time, men have had more experience doing this. We've said that, hey, many of these jobs before now were done just by men. We're having more women coming into the field now and doing these things. And what we're saying is, even when you look at the pay gap, men are more likely to do difficult jobs, riskier jobs. We're naturally risk takers, right? That's the situation that exists. This is not to say that when men do these things, it's taking away anything from what women do. This is not to say that when a man goes out to work in a coal mine to feed his family, his wife being at home breastfeeding his child is doing
Got it.
anything.
It's not-
Their
it's no
child.
way
I'm just
in
trying to, what
English.
was your
No.
point by saying men
If you
don't
let
like
me say it,
Did
though,
you get what
would
the
you like-
point
would
was?
you like me
No,
to say-
still don't get the point.
I
Sorry.
don't.
The idea here is that when they're doing their job, when
Yes.
you're doing your job,
Yes.
and I'm doing my job,
Yes.
that provides the best situation
Got you.
for the child.
Okay.
Is that
Great.
clear?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense, right?
And so, many times we're looking at male and female and we're going, hey, we're interchangeable, it's just hands. We're not just hands.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right?
of course.
Women are mothers, men are fathers.
Of
And
course.
in our relationships, as long as we can recognize these things and appreciate the differences in each other, then we can play more to the traits that we're talking about. Mike, you introduced this a little bit earlier, that these traits, while women can take on these roles, while men can take on the other female traits, these are not natural to them. And so they're going to cause other issues.
Well, I think we spoke about this before, the distribution of roles and perhaps the fair distribution of roles. So you referred earlier to the homework point, the bacon and the times tables. So there are certain, when I was growing up, both parents were present. One parent was better at one type of subject than the other. And
Of
so
course,
they
yeah.
just distribute it. And I got kind of equal inputs of homework. And one parent was good at getting the answer on something, but the idea was that I'm supposed to work it out. So then they'd go and have a little, meeting by themselves, and the one that had worked out the answer would explain to the one that couldn't work out the answer how to explain to me how to work out. So
Why
here
can't
I'm
you
sitting
be our
there
kid,
twiddling
man?
my
We gotta
thumbs.
work this out
And
together.
that's parental teamwork and distribution of responsibilities in quite an equal way in that scenario.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I'll just share with you, I do a program called SNAP for the Family Resource Center. And the key function of that program is that the leading of the program must be done by a male and a female. And the idea behind that is, hey, the book is manualized, or the content that we cover is manualized, so anyone can read it and deliver it. But part of the functionality of the program is also modeling. The modeling the interaction or positive interaction between male and female, so that the children can see that in single mother or single fatherless household, that modeling may not be as obvious or even there.
Of course, yeah.
Quite so, but in a single fatherless household, you are more likely to see a father modeling interactions with his daughter and with his son. So you do get that mixed interaction. In a single motherless led household, you are less likely to see these things, and these become some of the factors that impact how those relationships. Because one of the factors I did mention to you is that pair bonding. That is a significant factor, and that's pointing to also the statistics that are growing. Hey, divorce rate. Who's leading that? If we're saying 90% of women are fighting for divorces, and we know that not the majority of these situations are not abusive situations, what is happening? How are these situations play out? Which brings us back to understanding the landscape, understanding what we're talking about, understanding what these things look like. What does that mean for the decisions I make?
Can I just say, it goes back to what I was telling Chelsea earlier this morning. When we look at our generation now in how people move and how they view divorce and view marriage, there's no longer duty involved in it. You know what I mean? And that's where we go back to our duty to our kids and stuff like that. It's a very much fairy tale happy. I told Chelsea this earlier today. I said, corn is basically has done to men what Disney and romance novels have done to women. So you kind of got this thing where you're almost being sold a lie. Then you're selling men. This is a lie. This is how women should be behaving, right? That's another one for you.
Thank you.
There you go. You're like, wait, are we going to the crop field? No, we're on YouTube, so that's why. And again, so I think a lot of times, and from that angle, what it's actually really showing is that out of the 90%, again, if I can just dive into that again, out of the 90%, 66% of that is financial reasons, of which the women are making 40% more than the men when they make those, say, I'm signing, this is because of a financial reason, right? 20, what is it? Is it 20? Hold on, let me just backtrack. Let me get my numbers right. It's 20, I think it's 20% is infidelity.
Yes.
Right?
Well, 24%.
24%, which is basically...
If declared. I mean, one way of getting around.
Yeah, but when you get a divorce, where do you gotta...
Yeah.
You're divorcing me, where do you gotta hide?
Because usually you have to catch in Cayman, I believe, you have to catch somebody. You'd have to literally have a photo of somebody in bed with somebody before you could declare infidelity. So it's probably the most neutral one in Cayman, because it is a fault-based system, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, but you are ticking the
the
box is what I'm saying, right? So
One second,
we're
Mike,
still
one
just
second.
going back
Right,
there.
just clear that. There's a correlating statistics, though, that says, in general, that's the infidelity rate.
Right.
Yeah, and can I just add, right, when it comes on to males, so we're saying 20% roughly, our women are saying, I'm getting out of this because he's a dog, right? Straight up. But on the other side of it, the men they are getting divorces of what they say. Basically, the men that are initiating it, only here's the thing though, 13% of that is infidelity from the women. So again, from a percentage standpoint, that's only 7% difference
in the cheating numbers.
No, I'm not saying that there's in the spectrum of things, 1 million women got divorced. That's 200,000, and then only 10% is men. What is that? Help me with the math one a little bit, even though I'm going to count it. But
I'm no good at math, so yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Yes, so it's a smaller
amount.
amount,
Yes.
but as a percentage, we're still saying as a percentage that, it's in that same spectrum. But my point is, again, so I think a lot of it is basically, happiness is coming first. You see Tia Mowry.
How about
going
this
out
to
there.
throw
Can I
the
just
cat
finish real
amongst
quick?
the pigeons? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, let me just finish real quick. You got Tia Mowry going out on Instagram, coming live, going out on TV, basically saying getting divorced is her version of graduation.
Exactly.
She graduated from marriage. And like that's that, and again, like if you go and look at a same tweet or post, whatever, that got hundreds of thousands of likes. So that's that's hundreds and thousands of people agreeing with that narrative, you know. And I'm looking at that thinking like, what are we selling out here? You know what I mean? What are we really selling to young people to gain?
And I know you want to add something, Shriver, but let me just put this in right here. And that's where we really want to come to. It's not about attacking individuals. It is recognizing what is happening in our culture, in our society, what we are celebrating, and then what that translates to for the next generation. If we're celebrating situations where we're saying, hey, we're graduating from marriage because I just need to be a better version of myself, or I'm graduating from marriage because this man is not making enough money. I'm making 40% more money than him, so I need a better man.
That's the major contributing factor here. And then when that's not even touching on actual like domestic violence now. So that's only in the 10% there.
And coming back to what Shriver said, so in like, that, hey, guess what? As human beings, there's certain elements that are not a part of our curriculum, like conflict resolution, like even marriage. Husband is a job and wife is a job. Where do we learn? Where do we prepare for these jobs so that these persons actually fulfill these roles?
No one teaches us how to be a functioning adult. They teach us algebra. They teach us how to analyze literature. They teach us
is one way, but
facts.
if you were not raised in a system, then you're not able to do that. But I think one thing that you touched on, Michael, that's quite important is, you know, kind of, in a way, I think a lot of the responsibility also lies on married couples speaking up about and being transparent about the good, the bad, and the ugly of marriage, because it's not a Disney fairy tale being married. I was married for nearly 10 years.
100%.
It can be ugly, it can be brutal, it can, you know, it's not all about butterflies and passion, you know, that usually dies after year 1 or 2. It's about the love becoming something else, and the love becomes a choice at that point. So I think it's very much we need more married people, you know, to speak up.
And that's such an excellent point, because here's the thing. If we're recognizing that we've been sold a fairy tale from Disney, hey, you kissed and they lived happily ever after, and persons get married and they go, hey, we need to
It's not.
we kiss, we
That's just where the trouble begins.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't show that part.
The fireworks go off, magic happens, and you're supposed to live happily ever after. And when that couple comes back from the honeymoon and go, the trash needs to be taken out, well, I thought you were going to do it. And then we start having those arguments. We go, oh, I guess I'm with the wrong person. And then you add to that, well, I'm doing my boss thing, I'm doing my work thing, I'm making more money. I guess I am with the wrong person because this person is not at my level. And we're using these other, I need to graduate. Because what? Because we haven't seen those models in our society. We're looking at the divorce rate, we're looking at the numbers. And I should also point out that even those who stay married, if they haven't learned the skills, then they may be, as you said earlier, demonstrating the wrong model.
Unhappy qualities, which is also off-putting for some people. They're like, well, I don't want that.
So what I'm saying here is, I'm not going, hey, persons, get into slavery, get into murder, get into these situations, just kind of suffer through it. It is, what can we do as a society to strengthen our situations, right? Let's start out with therapy.
I'm serious.
I think
if I was to
therapy is
get married
something
again, I
for
would
women,
definitely know. For
Say again?
women?
Yeah. Well,
What did you say?
He thinks therapy is for women.
no, hold on. What I'm
No,
trying to
wait,
say-
hold on. Give him a chance to finish
what
the
I'm trying
idea.
to say, sorry, Chelsea. What I'm trying to say,
You know what? Wait, we're
Give
going
me
to take
my
a break
soapbox.
right there. So, thank you all. You're listening
Hold
to
on.
The Wrecking Trade
It's-
right
it's
here.
not as-
Wait, 1 second, Michael. We're just going to take a break. We're listening to The Wrecking Trade right here on Bubble FM. Welcome to The Wrecking Trade. This and every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. The radio show that provides a platform for a deeper understanding of issues affecting men in the Cayman Islands. Join us as we explore the low enrollment of men and boys in college classrooms, the absence of men in the church, and the absence of fathers in the home. Join the conversation as we help men find their place in the modern world. Through engaging interviews with experts and members of the community, we provide a clear picture of what healthy masculinity looks like as an example for boys and girls. Our mission is to provide a voice for men, to help them navigate the challenges that they face and provide hope for a brighter future. So tune in this and every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. and join the conversation on The Wrecking Trade. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of men and boys in the Cayman Islands. Brought to you by Oscore Fitness, strong inside, powerful outside, and the Bellagio Salon and Spa, where beauty is reimagined. You're listening to The Wrecking Trade. I'm your host, Robert Lynch. The heat just got turned up in the studio just now. As we go back to Michael. Michael, before you get crucified, tell us, what were you saying just now?
What I was trying to say is, and I know I kind of left on a cliffhanger there, but what I was trying to say is that, again, studies have shown that the how therapy is basically done, it is more represented in terms of like who it benefits more. It benefits women because innately how you guys are designed is that you want to come to somebody, you want to sit down and you want to be able to express and listen. So someone to listen to, again, well, how did that make you feel? And all the questions that therapists
That's a
tend to
terrible
ask.
question a therapist can ask.
But what I'm saying is, most of the time, you're able to vent, you're able to get out these, because sometimes even in certain situations, you don't feel like you can communicate the way you want to communicate and stuff like that. But it's like an arena more catered around to like how the biological makeup is for a woman, whereas for a man, we go into it thinking, if it was me, I'm gonna look and say, here's my problem, how do I solve it? I'm not really here to talk about it. I'm like, whatever the issue is, let's say, whatever it is, it's infidelity or something. Like, what is wrong with me? I want to know why why am I doing that, and I want to fix it. So, that's how we are innately as men. We want to problem solve.
I'm so glad you said that, because
that's where I was coming from.
Just
so like,
Is he safe, ladies?
Yeah,
Is he
you're
safe?
safe.
Just so I
well,
can.
he's safe because he's our friend and we like him. But that's the only reason. But no, it's interesting you say that, because I think this whole pigeonholing certain traits, the touchy-feelies to the women and the, spear-wielding problem-solving to the men is kind of misleading, because I see my therapist to problem solve. I talk to her and I say, this is what's happened, what do we do about it? And she structurally, thematically
10 more appointments
talks
for you
things through
to
with
talk
me.
about it.
Exactly right. She's more of a life coach. But no, I mean, if I want to vent, if I'm kind of, feeling emotional about something, and we all get emotional, it's not just women who get emotional, we're all human beings, we all have emotions, therefore we all get emotional. Whether we express them or not is an individual thing. If I'm getting emotional, then I will get together with my friends and be screaming at them across the table over a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna spend my money on the therapist to scream at her. She's gonna be my problem solver.
And there's no way I'm spending $150 an hour just to vent, which sometimes is therapy in itself to be able to vent, but it's not. There's different kinds of therapy that a person can do, and the reason I say if I was to get married again, it would be both of us going to therapy, so that individually we can both
Put in the work, tap into, okay, what was our childhood trauma? Who are we today? And also, as you said, for the woman, usually making sure she feels heard in the way that she wants to be heard, or that she's communicating in a way that is understood by her male partner. So my point there is that there's work to be done with both men and women to help solve this crisis, because whether you were from a nuclear house family or not, ultimately, whether you have children, you have a responsibility, you have a job to do. So I know I've been through probably a lot more than most, which is why I am in therapy, so that I can pick better partners in the future, be a better partner for somebody to pick, and also do whatever I can to mitigate the risks of particularly my daughter repeating the mistakes that I may have made in the past. And
Yes,
why?
And just to add some context, my graduate work is actually in marriage and family therapy. And so the idea here behind therapy is to be non-directive, which means even if your therapist is helping you to problem solve, then their goal is not to give you the solutions or tell you what to do or give you answers for you to explore. It is to allow you to come to that conclusion on your own. I think what Michael is saying here is that as men, we operate in that space where, hey, dude, give me an answer. Let me go do it. Let me go operate. Let me go test it. Let me go see if it works, and I can get to a solution quicker, as opposed to trying to navigate around and trying to come to the epiphany on my own.
I see it so much times, even in my marriage, where my wife is telling me a scenario at work, and she's there just really wants to just to talk to me and tell me about work, but I am approaching it from a place of like, well,
Someone's giving you lip at work. Okay, how do you solve it?
here's what you should do.
Speak to your
You should go, and this is how you should sit down with them, and this is how you should approach it and all that. When and that's how it started, and eventually it got to a place now where she finally felt like she could say, I just need you to sometimes sit down and listen.
Exactly.
I don't need a. You see what I'm saying? So that's where I was just coming from, in that
There's
respect.
an irony there because you guys are being there, because I've had this experience too, and I think the guy feels like he's being there for us by
Yes.
trying to problem solve.
Exactly.
But the way I felt about that is that I'm not being listened to because all you seem to want to do is solve my problem.
Exactly.
I'm
No,
perfectly
honestly,
capable
you're-
of solving my own
you're
problem.
100% right.
I just
no,
want you
no,
to
wait,
listen
wait,
to
wait,
it. It's him tapping, on the surface.
Yes.
No, I'm not trying to trigger you as men. On the surface, a man's intentions are good in that moment. What
Yeah.
he's doing is, let me help my woman. But by helping his woman, what does that do for him? It gives him that rush of endorphins. It makes him feel good. So actually what he's doing is he's tapping into his divine masculinity, and actually he's serving his own purpose. Whereas what she's saying is, baby, I know you want to help me, but deep down what you're doing is helping yourself.
That's an interesting. That's an interesting. That's an interesting. That's an
I never
interesting
really thought of it
perspective.
like that,
That's an
but-
interesting perspective.
Not in a bad
However,
way,
yeah.
as I
unintentionally.
think as the men in the room, one of the things I'd like to say here is, I'm not trying to help myself. As a man-
Naturally, though, instinctively, what you're doing is you're doing what you're wired to do, which makes you feel good.
Which is to do
Protect
what?
and provide.
Which is to
Protect her, help her,
so
fix her problem.
so that's essentially saying then everyone is selfish and you're only doing whatever you do.
Have you read the 48 Laws of Power? Everybody has a
So
sense
you're
of
saying-
narcissism. We do. It's naturally
So
in us as human
altruism
beings.
is not
We
real.
do.
Is that what we're saying? Altruism is not real?
No, I'm not saying that. But for example, I'm very invested in.
I think it's all in
the
a spectrum,
charitable
to be
organisations that
fair.
I deal with. But there is no denying that you feel good when you do something good for somebody else. You do get a rush from
but
doing
it's
it.
different to say I feel good about doing something than to
Yes.
go, hey, I'm just self-serving.
No, I'm not saying
The
he's being
byproduct,
self-serving.
what we're separating here is the byproduct of helping my wife, helping my partner, supporting her, is that I feel good about it.
Yeah.
So, but that's not the main product, and we want to be clear because,
Yeah.
and I'm belaboring this because it can be misleading for persons. That means every time a wife doesn't feel heard, she's just saying that's because you're selfish, and we want to avoid that conversation and get to the place
yeah.
where we go, hey, as a man, I'm genuinely trying to help you.
Yeah.
I can feel good about you,
Yeah.
or I cannot, or even if it doesn't feel good, my job is to help you. Because if we're walking down the street and somebody attacks us or attacks you, and I put myself in harm's way, I may end up dead.
Yeah.
Right? I may end up losing my life. There's no selfish part about that.
Yeah.
I'm protecting you.
Yeah.
So we want to be clear
And
on.
then on the flip side of
Yes.
it, so it doesn't seem like I'm just bashing men. Women, me personally, I can have a problem with accepting help. Like, it's not well, you could say biologically it's natural to me, but because I've been in my masculine energy for so long, it doesn't come easy to me to accept help. I'm very independent, so when a man does want to help me, I'm now training myself to lean into that help, right? I was just telling Michael this morning, like, I'm a strong woman, I go to the gym, I'm used to doing all my groceries. I was at Foster's, lugging these big water trays into the car, into the trunk, and this lovely gentleman comes over and says, hey, let me help you with that. And my instinct was to go, oh no, I got it. And then I was like, no, Charles, if this man wants to put the waters in my trunk, let him. And I let him, and I was like, well done me, I'm in my feminine. I accepted the help. So when a man is, when you are with your wife and the fact that you even acknowledge and realize right now she doesn't want me to fix the problem, that is so beautiful. Like, you are really, that
Doesn't
shows
always work
true
out
love,
like that.
though,
It takes time for
Yeah.
us to just kind of
So
like
beautiful.
subconsciously sometimes
Yeah.
just back off a bit
Understand,
and just be
yeah.
like, you know what, let me just take time to listen. Ask her about her day, listen to it, and if there's anything, make her come and be like,
There we go.
What should I do?
And that's the most masculine thing you can do.
Yeah.
And
I
so the
think.
base here is
Yeah.
recognizing that we speak different languages, and I think that was your core point in understanding how we communicate. A woman would like to share, for the most part, because you have women who are different, would like to communicate and feel heard, while a man wants to get to the solution to the problem. If I'm hungry, I don't want you to empathize with my hunger. I need some food, right? And so here, as we recognize the difference, when Michael is able to go, okay, I'm going to switch out of my natural and switch on my listening ears, I was actually having a conversation with a group of persons, and one of them was sharing an analogy, and the analogy is sometimes a woman comes, she has a nail in her forehead, right? It's pain, and she comes and she's telling you, hey, this nail is painful, it's hurting, I'm having all of these problems, and the man goes, let me just help you, let me take the nail out. But that's not what she wants.
No.
She wants him to hear and empathize, and he's struggling in the because he can see the thing that's causing
it's
the
that's
pain.
logical
it,
to
yeah.
him. But women are not always logical. We are emotional beings, right?
A
So
lot
it's
of the
finding space, it's allowing space for each other to operate in those, and
It's
sometimes
also,
it shifts.
it's also being aware of how someone operates. So for me,
Yeah.
something happens, and I don't think this is a male-female thing, unless, I don't know, you guys with your statistics tell me it is. But,
Maybe
so,
that's one.
well, I'm sure you've got
He's
a
gonna
stat
whip
for
them out
it.
in a
Yeah,
minute.
he's going to whip them out any minute now. So something might happen, and I will react to it, and I will sit with how I'm feeling about it, and then I will
Go on, girl.
think and meditate and feel into the situation, and then come up with a solution.
Yeah.
I don't just go bang like that. I'm perfectly capable of thinking on my feet. I was on my feet
Yeah.
for 8 years in court doing that as a barrister. So it's not like I can't do it. It's my preferred way to not have to do it.
Yeah.
And so then if I've got somebody barging in and saying, well, got to do this and you've got to do it now, there's going to be a fight.
Can I give you a scenario real quick? I did something like this one time as well, with my wife. I went to see 2 different wealth asset advisors, right? And I took her with me, right? Because again, I felt like I want you to be a part of this, the decision making. I don't want to just be that guy that I earn or this earns or I make the decisions. You need to come. And she didn't understand everything this guy was saying. He's talking numbers and different type of investments and all that. But I didn't bring her there for that. And we went and saw this one guy and we saw this other guy together. And they both got to say what they had to say. At the end of it, I didn't ask her which you think was the best investment opportunity. I knew which one was going to be the best investment opportunity. What I wanted from her is simply, I was like, how did you feel about the two of them? Because I know, and you often hear this a lot about women, like especially first appearances are very important, is where you often hear women say, when I first saw him, he made me feel, you see what I'm saying? So again, appearance and feelings tied to the way you guys kind of think and rationalize things, make decisions and stuff like that. So for me, and funny enough, the same person she chose is also my intuition was telling me the same thing. And he also gave like the best numbers and those kind of things. But for that particular purpose, I was like, I see how her mind, her mind and how the way she thinks can help bring our decision together. All right, the numbers make sense to me, but who makes us feel,
There you go.
and
so-
make you feel trusted.
And that's what I love the shift in what you just said. Your reasoning brought you to this guy, and her feels brought her to this guy, and you could both come to the decision together. And I'm glad you brought that up, because here's the thing. That's a part of femininity. That's a part of a woman leaning into her feminine. And sometimes in our environment, because as men, we may contribute to this. If we focus too much on the logical and the reasoning, a woman may not feel like she can defend that and feel like she has to lean out of her femininity and try to lean into logic. So she may have believed, hey, he brought me here to kind of think through the logics and the whatnot, but you were clear. I'm not asking you to tell me what the best decision is based on the numbers. I want you to lean into your femininity and give me, so that we together can make a united, strong decision than just want anything slanted to one side or the other.
Yeah, I think there's a definite lack of appreciation in our current society, which in the corporate world is still very male-led, for the value and the role of the female intuition. It doesn't have to only be female. There are males I know who have good intuition too, better than me. But there's definitely a role for that. How have humans survived all this time? I mean, it's kind of you're in the jungle and there's a saber-toothed tiger stalking you. It's your intuition, the hairs that stand up on the back of your neck, that tells you need to get your spear out or run away or whatever our ancestors used to do to make sure we got here.
Certainly. And to go right back to the beginning of time, where we're running around in the jungle with spears and whatnot, and we're looking at the situation. As men, we're going to be natural risk takers. If we're taking too many risks, we're all going to die. We do need
Yes,
that.
fellas.
So we do need that balance that says, okay, fine, this is risk. Is this a manageable risk for us as a unit, for us all together? But if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, you go with a team, you go with others. And so as a team, as a couple, we recognize that, hey, the best long-term plan is for us to work together, each of us leaning into our natural powers, our natural skills, so that together we may make the best decision for our unit, our tribe, and or society as a whole.
Agreed.
So finally, that brings us to the impact of money. We talked about the fact that, hey, 40% out of the divorce numbers, if a woman makes 40% more than her partner, she's going to have some feels about that.
Is he? You're putting it on the woman, but does he? That's the first question. Does he feel emotional?
It's a double-edged sword, in my opinion.
And it
But you all are initiating it.
yes, because we can't say, hey, it's a double-edged sword. He feels a particular way about it, but then you sign the papers or you
Am I
file the papers.
responsible for how he feels?
Absolutely
But we just
Am I in control of another's?
Absolutely not.
The insecurities that somebody may already have from their own life experience. Am I responsible?
But
for that?
we just also said that it's a double-edged sword, right? And then you, in turn, earlier we were talking about the earners and stuff like that. He could be a great dad in home, taking care of things while you're like, you know what? You go and kill it. You go and kill it out there. You go and bring the bread home, and whatever the case is. But you will still, at some point or another, maybe start feeling some resentment to what is happening there. Probably even saying, dang, I probably want to spend a bit more time with my kids. You know what I mean? And
Well, then that's a conversation to be had.
Or even as you're thinking of spending much time with the kids, part of the natural inclination for women, and again, this is a general statistic, is to want to be with a man where she feels protected, supported, and, I mean, by and large, that he is in a stronger position than her. So
Are you talking about the 90%, the 90% of women filing for divorce? Is this...
well, we're
Yeah,
talking
I
about in
think
general,
so.
Okay.
women in general,
Because
then we're going to
what I was going to say earlier about that, to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, and guys, what do you think about this? I mean, men...
Cat amongst pigeons?
Yeah, men are lazy. They're happy to just, sit on their laurels and, yeah, okay, we're fighting a bit, but, she's still here. Oh, yeah, I messed up the other day, but, she so here.
Men don't
There are
leave.
only
I
so
said
many
this to
times
you on
if
the
she's
show
still
last
here
time.
so men
before
are
she
more.
goes and
You say men are
files.
more committed.
And
then.
I'm not talking about like necessarily. I think lazy might be a strong word, but I'm talking about more
Hence the
like
cat amongst the
it
pigeons.
takes a lot for a man to leave, and I think, again, I'm just speaking from experience. Women will try and try and try, in my experience, before they go and kind of file for divorce or leave. A woman will give you all the answers and all the tools. She'll use your women's intuition. She'll try and communicate with you before she leaves. Men, on the other hand, they'll make it so kind of, by the end of it, it's like, well, leave or don't, right? In my opinion.
So that's a really interesting position, and I'm glad you said that men just don't leave. And Michael, I think you're trying to introduce this idea here. When men don't leave, do we see that as a negative, as in they're lazy, or do we see that as a positive, in that this situation is horrible, it's tough, it's difficult, but I'm committed to the process?
No, I would say it's a negative, because these men in these situations that aren't leaving, they're not committed, or the woman wouldn't be at the end of her tether ready to file for divorce. I'm talking about the men who aren't getting up out of bed or continue to do things that the women don't like, or if we're talking specifically about finances, maybe...
You earning 40% more than me could be the
So
difference.
what have you been doing?
No, what I'm saying is, you could be earning a little bit more than me. We're both out there
If
earning.
we both entered into the
Yeah, we're both
relationship like that,
earning,
though,
though.
that's fine. But if we're in a relationship and over time I've suddenly, and you haven't, then what's where's
But
your
we
growth?
talked about this
We're
earlier,
obviously
though.
not growing together.
Hold on, we talked
Something
about it
changed.
earlier where I could be out there working 12 hours a day and I'm earning 50K,
Mm-hmm.
right? And does it take away from the fact that I am working my butt off to provide, to protect, to do all those things? Yeah, you got a pay raise, you got a promotion. Maybe my situation isn't the same in that sense, you know what I mean? It depends on the circumstances, but does that negate from the fact that I'm out there killing it for 12 hours of the
No,
day and
I
putting in the
agree.
work?
And I don't think those are I wouldn't know any woman
I would
in her
think the
right
majority
mind that
of
would
the
leave a
men.
man like that.
What I'm saying is,
I don't know a woman who would
the
leave a man who's
I'm
working
gonna
12
just
hours
say,
a day.
I'm just saying that the majority of men are out there working
Yes.
and putting something on the table, on some.
And they're still getting left.
And they're still getting left. I hear
But
what
what
you're
else is
saying.
going
Yeah,
on?
there are some lazy guys, and yeah,
Let's
well,
be
we're
logical here, guys.
we're still
Well,
saying
what else is going on
we're saying
then?
that 66% of them are leaving because even though he's bringing something to the table, he
It's
ain't
not
enough.
enough.
That's what we're
No.
ultimately coming back to.
No, there's something else. I think there's
So
obviously
so
something
here's the thing,
else.
and
It
again,
can't just
coming
be
back-
because if she entered into the relationship and she was already earning 40% more, she's not going to leave him for him earning 40% less, because she entered into that, right?
Actually, it does
I think
happen,
typically
because
it's-
those situations are actually more likely to fail than the ones who get together equal and then she raises. Why?
Right.
Because over time, persons may get together with a man, a high earning woman may get together with a man and go, okay, fine, I'm going to work with him. 6 months down the road, she's like,
Yeah, because she fell in love with potential instead of who
and
he was.
it's not happening.
Yeah.
They-
And maybe the potential is
Yeah.
there, and he will get it, but he might get there in 5 years. But your timeline,
But she's not down
might
for that,
also
right?
not be there.
No
I'm
woman
just.
should get with a man for his
I-
potential
I'm-
ever. Marry where he's
I
at.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming
No
from.
woman, no man. You
No
know?
woman, no
And so
man,
I
very
do
much.
want to tie it back to what you said earlier, in that the two key things that we can walk away from this is we need to learn how to pick better.
Yes.
Right? And that pick better goes back to what you talked about earlier, Shubra, in the idea that, hey, we have to learn to look at ourselves.
Yes.
And so our message to men today and in general is that, you know what, as men, we need to get on point. We have gotten lazy.
Go and meditate, guys. Go and meditate.
We by and large have gotten, because we have, I guess, drank the Kool-Aid as well and go, hey, we live in an equality society, and so it's equal, and so, hey, it's okay for her to go out there and be the boss and work and do other things, and maybe I can pull off the gas a little bit, right? And that is creating situations where, what was I looking at just earlier, where women are not happy. It's saying women are getting to the number, and 42 seems to be an interesting number. The most unhappiest persons on the world are women over the age of 42 who are earning under $100,000 a year. And interestingly enough, the numbers for men, if they're the happiest persons in the world are men over 39, earning more than $100,000 a year. Go figure, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea here is that
It's
if,
like they're so misaligned. We've just come full circle and we still haven't solved the problem.
Yeah.
and so if we can find a way, and I guess the easiest understanding for this is someone shared this idea with me. Women are born with value.
100%.
Everyone's born with value. Every human being.
No, but
No, not to that- not in that sense.
what
To the
he's trying to
extent
say is
that-
that in terms of what the things that men value, which
Yes.
is purity, femininity, those sort of things, you're naturally born
Yes.
with those things from the onset. Beauty.
So boys are impure.
No,
So
but
that-
in
that-
terms of the
Michael,
things that you value, like we just discussed, like being able to
provide,
protect. I can't protect you if I'm a wimp
Yes.
and I don't have
So I have to
muscles
get in the gym
and I
and get
don't
stronger.
exactly. So that I can't do that as a baby. I have to do that as an 18, 21, 22-year-old. Same thing. I can't earn and be a good mate to you to the point where you're like, you know what? This guy is making some money here. I can work with this guy. I have to do that. Whereas we don't look. Those are things that we don't go into a relationship and say, I wonder how much Chelsea makes.
Yeah, but
You know,
women don't just say,
that's
"Look,
a
great,
number
guys,
one
give us
thing.
some credit
No,
here."
no,
So
wait,
it's
wait,
beautiful,
no,
it's
hold on.
beautiful.
I'm just-
That's all
hold on,
we've
hold
got
on.
to do
No,
is
we're-
go to the
and it's
Disney
not
show.
even, wait, guys.
Barefoot and
I'm running out of
It's
time.
kind of like it's kind of that.
I'm running out of time, so I do want each
necessarily.
of you to share your own platform so the
Sorry.
person can connect to you. But I do want to get this point out, and that point is, women, they walk out on the street, whether you look hot or not, men are going to check for you.
True.
Because a man, whether he's making money or not, he will go down to Burger King and check the girl who's behind the counter, right? Because her money, her accolades, all the things, these are not important things to men.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you're not going to look at the guy who's working at Burger King.
You'd be surprised. You should see some of my ex-boyfriends.
80% of men are actually invisible to women because they just don't make the cut. And unfortunately, as a woman goes higher, even more of those men become invisible
Because
they're
they
now
date
beneath
you guys date laterally and up.
And
so
up.
the more you earn, the your
The smaller
That's
your
not
pool gets.
necessarily
Your pool-
true. I've
No,
dated
but-
younger guys who earn
And
less.
again, remember,
Yeah.
we do
More
have
than once.
outliers. What we're talking about is
for the
in general.
vast majority, so therefore
What
your
they look
pool
for.
your
Yes.
pool like me and Chelsea were talking about this morning. She's like, she even admitted like her pool is shrinking. But for just not that factor, not just that factor,
Well,
but other
it's
factors.
K-Man and
It-
you've got
other
to wear
factors.
'em out. Yeah, but you're right.
Mine
Yeah,
is
yeah.
widening. It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game, love.
Yeah, yeah.
And so once you recognize that, we can look at those two things and go, hey, as men, we need to work on improving ourselves, because you're going to be invisible to women unless you're actually doing the work. You're going to be considered lazy, be considered all of these things. So get in the gym, get in the finance, get in schools, talking about the numbers of persons in college, 4 to 1, and the different situations where graduation. So men, we need to get on point so that if we do want to be considered men, to be leaders, providers, and the priests in the household,
High-value men, yeah.
high-value men, we need to be adding value and making sure that we're building on our value. Right? And so with that, I'd just love to offer an opportunity to each of you to share what your thoughts, final thoughts on the show, and how persons can reach out to you.
Final thoughts. So I agree with everything that everybody has said for the most part, and I'm glad that you highlighted that this is not just a single mother's problem. And I think just, ultimately, yes, it is difficult to live up to the expectations of not only kind of this toxic masculinity kind of mindset that many people have, but also to try and be the best husband or mate for women. Yes, women can have very high standards, but ultimately, if you have high standards for yourself, then it's going to be a much more successful relationship. And yes, women attract men with their looks, but looks aren't going to keep a man. So I think we have to do a lot more than just sit and look pretty. My name's Chelsea Flynn. I am the co-founder of the agency. If you are keen to secure a new position in financial services or the legal space, contact us on 743-1777.
Very rehearsed, it sounds like.
She's just smooth.
Yeah, she is good, man. But no, I mean, great show. I love these kind of topics. I learned at the same time from you guys, and it just takes me into a space to kind of just become, even though I'm able to, share my thoughts and share my opinion, obviously, I can take in a little bit, and, I try to take in as much as I can from the feminine mindset, because it only, hopefully it will help me in my relationships with females, marriage, all, other friendships, and so on and so forth. So I really appreciate the discussion. Again, my name is Michael Sanford from my company is FinK. If you're looking for any personalized accounting and consulting services, you can contact 345-925-2943 or michael@fink.com. michael@finkinc.com.
Gotcha.
So final thoughts. I think the way our discussion went and the statistics shows that there's room for improvement all round. And I think that one of the ways we can all do that is just to be more conscious human beings and be more intentional in how we see ourselves, how we behave towards others. And then I think that I would hope, lead to a better, more conflict-free society where we're seeing fewer relationship breakdowns because we are able to pick better. So that's my takeaway. My name is Shuvra Deb. I have a radio show and a podcast called Shuvra Deb With You. My radio show is here on Bobo FM every Thursday at 2 p.m. and my podcast is available for all on demand and for free on Spotify, Apple and Google. Just look me up, Shuvra Deb With You.
Thank you. You have all been a wonderful panel, and I appreciate all of you showing up. My name is Robert Lynch. This is the Wrecking Trade right here on Bobo FM, where we continue to have this conversation. And the conversation is to provide a platform where we can look at each other, see each other, and see how the decisions we make impact our society and how we're working at that and how we can work together to grow that, especially for men. Young men in the Cayman Islands are struggling. We've recognized that young men in the Cayman Islands are struggling. Young men around the world are struggling. The numbers so far, 1,500 subscribers on our platform in under a month and over 20,000 views of our videos, thanks to our guests. Chelsea, the show that you were on, the last one, got about almost 3,000 views to this point. So the numbers are doing great. Yours got about 2,000 so far. So there's a hunger for content like this. There's a hunger for conversations like this. And that is having real conversations. We may trigger each other. We may disagree with each other. But being able to stay in the conversation, stay in the moment, and work through the challenges that we can use to come to the right conclusion for our society, to build a tribe. And so you can continue by checking out the podcast on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe and to also share with someone who may not know. You can find the podcast at my website, robertnflynch.com/The Wrecking Trade. You will also find our daily blog where we break down this idea into smaller bite-sized pieces, just 2-minute reads. And so as we continue the conversation right here on Bobo FM, we appreciate your listening. We appreciate all of you who have subscribed. And if you haven't, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. Thank you very much. I'm your host, Robert Lynch. Welcome to The Wrecking Trade. This and every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m., the radio show that provides a platform for a deeper understanding of issues affecting men in the Cayman Islands. Join us as we explore the low enrollment of men and boys in college classrooms, the absence of men in the church, and the absence of fathers in the home. Join the conversation as we help men find their place in the modern world. Through engaging interviews with experts and members of the community, we provide a clear picture of what healthy masculinity looks like as an example for boys and girls. Our mission is to provide a voice for men, to help them navigate the challenges that they face and provide hope for a brighter future. So tune in this and every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. and join the conversation on The Wrecking Trade. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of men and boys in the Cayman Islands. Brought to you by Oscore Fitness, strong inside, powerful outside, and the Bellagio Salon and Spa, where beauty is reimagined.
Film of fiction.
In a remarkable three-part people and power investigation into a complex, secretive world, two journalists go in search of the Italian mafia's dirty money. The Launderer, Part 3, on Al Jazeera.
A weekly look at the world's top business stories.
Thousands of people go on strike over pay, the high cost of living.
From global markets and economies and small businesses.
And the export restrictions really impacted China's economy.
To understand how it affects our daily lives. Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera.
Russia says it has intercepted drones targeting the Kremlin and points the finger at Ukraine. Hello there, I'm Laura Kyle. This is Al Jazeera Live from Doha. Also coming up, a school shooting in Serbia's capital kills 9 people. A teenage suspect is under arrest. More violence in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, despite Tuesday's extension of a ceasefire for another week. And police in Brazil raid the home of former President Jair Bolsonaro as part of an investigation into falsifying COVID-19 records. Russia says it has stopped an assassination attempt on President Vladimir Putin. Moscow says 2 drones were used in an attack on the presidential residence in the Kremlin. It happened in the early hours of Wednesday.